So can you, first of all, please let me know, let everyone know, your family and relative members, any of your close friends have been either lost or lost people in the attack on October 7 or were kidnapped.
So, hello everyone. It's good to be here with you, and I know many of you were involved with the protest, so thank you for doing that. It's really important and meaningful and helpful to what we're trying to do here. Yes, it's probably the most difficult time in Israel's history since its very beginning. I don't know anyone who doesn't know a person who in some way was a victim of this atrocity and of the massacre of the 7th of October. Many people who I know from my activism before and political activity live on the border with Gaza. Really, some of the best people in this country live in the kibbutzim on the border with Gaza. Democracy activists, peace activists, very courageous and true Zionists. I think that's really summarizes the kind of communities that there are there, and they are the people who lost the most and are still fighting. And I think the circles of this horror are just they're getting to everyone, to every community, to every person in the country.
Can I take you back for a moment to the first minutes that you hear about the attack? I mean, I don't want to describe to you what I went through year by hearing. I want you to describe being in Israel and hearing that there is an attack, that there is war, hearing for the first time that something like this is happening in the South. How do you react? What are you saying? What do you think? What do you feel?
Well, so actually on the 7th of October, I was traveling with my family in the desert. And we woke up to that morning, and my husband woke me up and he told me in these words, something is happening. It sounds like another Yom Kippur, but even worse. And that's like really early in the morning. And it's only from what he saw on Twitter. It looks really bad. I'm going to the military. And we didn't even know we're far in the south, and we didn't even know what's going on with the roads and if it was possible to drive back to the center, and everything was very much in the unknown. And only in the next few hours we started to receive the stories. And I think the biggest shock for everyone was the lack of immediate response, was the long, desperate hours where so many people are aware of the fact that there are people who are locked in shelters, hiding from terrorists, not knowing when the army is going to, and something that was very, I think it's always, in Israel, it's always said that, it's a horrible thing to say, but if there's a terror attack, it's better to experience it in Israel because the army responds really fast and it will be rescued immediately. It's like we're very efficient with dealing with these things because we're used to it. We have the experience. And all of a sudden, all of that concept was broken. And we have personal friends who were hiding for over 24 hours in their shelter in the kibbutzim, not getting any rescue, not getting any sign. For many of this, for much of this time, we didn't even get a sign from them, and nobody know if they're still alive and what's going on. And just, with time, we're discovering more of the stories of what happened. So the first thing was a shock. I think the second thing, for many people who were involved with the protest movement and who are military reservists, it was very clear to everyone that they're going, even those who signed the different petitions, to put pressure on the government before to stop the anti-democratic legislation. So it was very clear for everyone without discussing it. It was very clear that everyone is going to the army to do everything that they can to help. And it was very clear for everyone who was not a reserve soldier, that we're all going to volunteer in different help centers, if it's to help those who had to evacuate, if it's to help those who were rescued, if it's to help everyone, soldiers with getting food and equipment. I'm sure many of you were involved in much of that. And so the entire country was there fighting. And I think one of the, or maybe, and we'll discuss this in this conversation. For me personally, for a very long time, I was really afraid of a scenario where we're getting into a different kind of war or security, a big security challenge, maybe on more than one front, with a government that doesn't have the trust of half or the majority of the people. The basic trust, not where we have a disagreement ideologically, but very basic sense of trust. But no one in the worst nightmares could imagine a scenario like the one that happened on the 7th of October. And so we got into a situation for people in Israel who are pro-democracy, who understand the political challenge that we're in, to be still in that political challenge, but at the same time, in this horrible war against a horrible, sadistic, evil terrorist organization, is a very, very complex situation.
I think that many of us sympathize with the shock, this transparent fabric of security that we always trusted, that, you know, we have the strongest army and that Israel is secured. That was just wounded without repair, I think, or maybe in many, many years it will be repaired. And the trust issue actually is very persistent also around the hostages, right? Whether the government is doing or not doing what it can and
not doing enough.
Not doing enough. And I want to talk to you about this. So I've watched you on the panels, and since October 7, you've been one of the most consistent voices saying hostages first, all for all, and leading to this meeting, to our meeting now. When we texted each other in the messaging, you also mentioned that everything that you do right now, 24/7, without sleep, is all centered around the efforts to bring the hostages home. So for us, it's really a rare opportunity to hear what activists in Israel can do right now or are doing right now to bring them home. So can you describe to us what are the actions, what is the doing of activists in Israel around bringing them home right now?
First of all, let's just look at this situation like we're not in 2023, but just take it like 10 years earlier. Let's take it to 2013 or 2010. 2010 is a good example, actually. There is one soldier who is a hostage in the hands of Hamas, Gilad Shalit. The whole country cannot comprehend with the situation that we have a soldier who is being held so hostage. And many people go on a protest to convince, to put pressure on the government to release him, to do whatever they need. In 2011, I was part of a group that started a big protest movement in Israel, the social justice movement. It was about housing prices and about social services. And at some point, we got a request from the Gilad Shalit family, and they're asking for help. And even though it was not a direct connection between their protest and what we did, we brought Gilad's father and we got him on stage and we connected in solidarity with their efforts. Gilad Shalit was eventually released, in a deal that we can argue if it was a good deal or not a good deal, but let's just talk about the essence of what happened there. Tzvika Hauser, who was the secretary of Prime Minister Netanyahu at the time, admitted a year later that Netanyahu released Gilad Shalit in order to silence the protest movement. And not because the two stories were connected, but because the way that Netanyahu acts on issues in general is according to public pressure. And he sees a fire somewhere that might hurt him, he starts a fire in a different place. And what he did was to try to calm down the protest by giving something that was a very emotional cause and important for Israelis. So that's Netanyahu. He's gotten worse with the years. The Netanyahu that we have now is not the Netanyahu of 2011, for sure. And now let's look at another thing that is very different. In 2011, we couldn't, it was like a very basic moral value to bring that soldier back.
Right.
We could not deal with the idea that Israel is not doing everything to get that soldier back. Today, we have 137 people, some soldiers, some people who went to a party. Some of them are fathers of children who were released, but the fathers are still there. And for some reason, and I really don't get it, it's not, their struggle is not loud enough. Here in Israel, a lot of the efforts that we're doing is actually more related to the international community. I'm personally involved in many initiatives to get the international community to understand what happens here, to get leaders from around the world to try to help these families, to put pressure on Hamas, to everything. But actually here in our home, the government is not doing enough. The hostages are not the first priority of this war. Now, we can have the argument whether what would be a good deal. I personally think that getting these people who were kidnapped from their homes, they were not kidnapped in, I don't know, they didn't go to some like enemy country, with a foreign passport and risk their lives. And not that would be an excuse to have to keep them there, but they didn't do anything. They were in their homes and they were kidnapped because of a huge failure of this country to protect them against those horrible terrorists. And it's the first priority of this war is to get them home safely. And what would happen? What's the price for it? Yes, there is a high price for what happened. There is a really high price. And it's very sad to admit, and I wish that I could say, like many people, I don't know how they don't have the shame of saying that, but speak on television with like, yeah, we're very strong, we're very this, we will win. All of this, it's okay, but there's a bit of a fantasy aspect to that. There is a high price to what happened on the 7th of October. We have to get these people home. We need to, the price would be to release more prisoners, some of them with blood on their hands. It's very hard to admit, but that's the situation. And we have to get them home. We know what they're going through there. And I don't want to repeat all the things that you probably heard on the news. Right. You're not the people that I need to convince with that. We need to get them. They need to be the first priority. And we need to put as much pressure as possible on our government to make it happen.
So I want to show everyone a video actually that we put, Ophir and David Myers actually had put some captions for those English speakers. It's a clip of Noam Dan, who is a cousin of Hadas Calderon. She was there with you on Channel 12 in a panel, and she was pouring her gut and talking with so much pain about what is not being done. And I want to show everyone this clip for a moment. Let me go to the clip and find it really quickly, and then I will share my screen with you. Hold on. Share screen. just make it bigger for everyone to see. Okay.
Neri, you need to share with audio. I don't think that the audio is being shared.
What is it?
You need to share the video and click on share with audio.
I am. Wait a minute. I thought I did, but let's see. Share screen. No. Sorry about that.
מובלים על ידי ארגון פסיכופתי שרוצה רק ברעתנו, שחוגג מוות, ובמקום להגיד אנחנו צריכים להציע להם הצעה שהם לא יכולים לסרב לה, אנחנו לא מספיק יצירתיים, אנחנו לא מספיק נועזים, היינו כאלה, היינו אומה חפצת חיים שהתעקשה. צריך הצעות? תשימו נשים בתוך הקבינטים, שימו אנשים שחושבים אחרת, תורת המשחקים, שימו אנשים שיצירתיים, שהם נועזים והם מבינים שכוח מוביל לכוח, ועכשיו אני צריכה אחרת. אני לא רוצה לחבק ולהרסל לאף אחד. אני רוצה להביא את החטופות והחטופים שהזמן שלהם אוזל. הזמן לבוא חשבון עם החמאס, לא רק שיהיה, היה גם זמן לפני, עד ה6 באוקטובר היה זמן, ויהיה גם זמן אחר כך. הדבר היחידי שלא יהיה זמן לגביו, זה להוציא החוצה את 136 אנשים שאנחנו הפקרנו. עכשיו שאלת, אל תגידי כולם מול כולם, אל תתני הצעות קונקרטיות, שאנחנו כל כך באימה, המשפחות של החטופים, שאנחנו לא מעיזים להגיד שום דבר נחרץ. שרק דעת הקהל, שערוץ 14, שכל הם תרלול, לא, תבואו לעשות איתנו קבלת שבת, תבואו לעשות איתנו עצרת. חבר'ה, תסגרו את הסיפור הזה, ותתחילו לעבוד בלהחזיר את האנשים אליהם. לא אנשים שלי, זה לא עופר שלי, זאת לא המשפחות שלי, זה המשפחות של כולנו. לא תהיה אפשרות לקיים את המדינה הזאת, אם לא נחזיר אותם. וכל הפלפולים האלה, האינטלקטואלים, על איך לעשות את זה, חמאס הוא לא בן ברית שלי, אני לא באה אליו בטענות עוד דרישות. אנחנו צריכים ליזום מהלך, שימו אותם על הגבול, שימו אוטובוסים על הגבול, קחו אותם באונייה, תגלו אותם, תציעו להם את מה שהציעו לערפאת לכיוון טוניס. יש דרכים לייצר מציאות אחרת, ואנחנו שבויים באותה קונספציה, לא השתחררנו, והחבר'ה האלה הם של כולנו. אנחנו כל הזמן מובלים על ידי ארגון פסיכופתי שרוצה...
So let me ask you, do you know of different creative ways to bring them home that the government actually dismissed or declined? No, I'm talking actually about things that were on the table and were dismissed, because we all know that we want to bring them home, but this statement or accusation that it's not created enough, that there are not enough ideas beyond military force. And what she's telling us is that, or this is what I heard, she's implying that there were things that were dismissed or declined, you know, other creative ideas that were not accepted. Is it true?
Well, I don't know about everything that's happening on the negotiation table. Of course, I'm not there. I know what I'm hearing from our friends and colleagues who are working with the United States government, and what we're hearing from other diplomats and military people and journalists. And I didn't see that creative way that you were describing. I saw, like everyone else, that there were different kind of deals on the table in the very first week. I personally thought it's a bit like we're 2 months to this war, so talking about what should have happened on the 8th of October, I think things could have been ran differently. And what really happened is that Israel, we were led by what Hamas expected us to do. And it's almost most time, and when I say Hamas, I actually mean Iran, because this is not just a Hamas-run operation. This is Iran with its involvement here and in the Middle East. And and we're the way that the thinking that we've become very much used to is not a creative kind of thinking. For the past over a decade, what we're being told all the time by politicians in Netanyahu's government, by military or former military figures on television, is that the conflict with the Palestinians can be managed. Netanyahu said in 2019, he said that the reason he's giving money to the Hamas is because Israel has an interest to prevent a two-state solution by strengthening Hamas. He's saying it in his own words, strengthening Hamas to prevent the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority from collaborating and to prevent a possibility, the horrible possibility of a two-state solution. That's his words. Mm-hmm. And he's now saying it again, that he will be the only one who's preventing a two-state solution. And they're giving up on compromise on territory and on the settlements. That was the strategy. And the political manipulation or perception there was that we can manage that we will have some kind of security. It's not a full security. There will always be some kind of attacks. We will always have to live on our sword, as they say. But that will be reality, and it will be okay. This will be life. And no one, literally nobody, because we don't really have a peace camp in politics today for a very long time. No one was talking about a different perception. And nobody is talking about a more creative reality. And more than that, it's not just about, being creative in the sense, and Noam mentioned a few ways that could be that could be developed, and I mentioned that in some of these interviews. But I'm actually talking about our way of thinking. I think our way of thinking became the thinking of victims, which is actually very similar.
I heard you saying many, many times on the panels that the way of thinking is reactive and not leadership. That it's only in reaction to.
It's even more than that. We became very similar in that sense to the Palestinian way of thinking that we criticize. Their victimhood, their lack of will to change their situation, they're not taking responsibility on their lives. And much of that is true. But we became that too. We stopped thinking like the creative Israel that we're supposed to be, like the Zionist thinking. The Zionist idea was that we can make the impossible happen. And it was done. Our grandparents made this country happen. And that stopped. Today, it's just like, let's just keep things as they are. Let's not take the risk. And this thinking is destroying us because you can't freeze the situation. There is no such reality, and definitely not in the Middle East. We're in this hostile environment, in a really difficult neighborhood, with a lot of foreign entities who are trying to operate and influence what's happening here. Hezbollah that is being navigated by Iran, and what's the situation in Syria, the situation in Gaza, the West Bank. We can't afford being uncreative, and we can't afford acting like victims. We have to start being proactive. We have to initiate, and if we understand that the only way to live here peacefully would be a two-state solution, and it's hard. Our partner is far from ideal. There is a lot of corruption there. There is lack of leadership. There is everything there that is destroying the possibilities for peace. But if we understand that it is our interest, so let's start to think about it creatively and strategically, and see what we change in the reality around us to achieve it. And we stop thinking like that. And the same thing is happening with the hostages, but also in another way, that they are being manipulated. I don't know if you get it abroad, I get a text message from an unfamiliar number every day with a campaign to not make, it's a campaign that allegedly comes from the families of the hostages. And I don't know the person who runs this campaign. I'm not sure it really comes from the families. But it says the families of the hostages oppose a deal that would risk Israel's security. They want to continue the operation in Gaza. And there is a campaign. Somebody pays for these text messages to be sent to everyone. And today when I saw I don't know if you read it, but there was meeting between the hostages' families and some of the released hostages to Netanyahu, and there was Amit Segal published different claims about what happened in the discussion, and it appeared to be like half of the families are against the deal and half of the families are for a deal. This is not the reality.
Yeah, I
But
actually have
somebody from within the
quote.
government is trying to manipulate with it.
Yeah, I actually have a quote from this exact meeting that just came out. I think it was written on Twitter by Gil Dickman, and he wrote, "It's been the hardest day since October 7. We came to the cabinet meeting. We wanted to tell Prime Minister that the abductees are being tortured, abused, and raped. But we trusted him to bring them all back. We heard from him. We have no way to bring them all back now. It's not in our hands, or in brief, this is life. We won't accept it. We will return everyone home." So this just happened now.
And just to imagine for a bit, when I say that we became predictable, I think what Hamas really wants and what Iran really wants, they want to destabilize the world. The problem that we're confronting here, you're going to confront in the United States, and the elections that you're going to be part of next year, of course, have our life here depend on that as well. And the same, so Iran and their allies want to destabilize the world, destabilize democracies. What Hamas is trying to do, they started their suicide bombings against Israeli civilians in the 90s during the Oslo peace process. Their agenda from the very beginning, of course, they want to do genocide to all Jews. It's part of their what they say on their agenda, on their formal agenda. They want to stop any progress for peace and for a two-state solution, and they succeed in that because we fall into the trap. And what they did now, and the way that they broadcast everything that they did, all the atrocities that they did, they took it on camera. They wanted to plant that horror and fear in every Israeli's mind, and they succeed in that too. And what Israel did was totally predictable, to start, a full-out war against them. Why to operate like that? We could start a war against Hamas at whatever point we decide to. We could start another front in the north where there is another threat at whatever point of time we decide to. We could be if we had a government that doesn't include, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and all of these crazy religious extremists, and of course Netanyahu, that nobody in the global leadership trusts, we could have a collaboration with our allies, first and outmost the United States, to decide of these, different points of times when we operate, to decide on a goal, to say that our interest is a two-state solution. Let's use this situation as an opportunity, a horrible one, but still, to promote a solution, a long-lasting solution, with all the pressure that the United States can put into the situation. There are many, many things to do, but none of that was happened. They did what Hamas expected us to do, and we're still doing the same thing.
So I want to ask you a question, relating to the fact that there are so many things to do, and all of us are activists here. Everyone here is an activist, the whole community of UnXeptable, and you are nowadays an activist and not a politician. And it brings me to a question of maybe those things are not done because we are moving from being activists to being in politics, So I wanted to have a discussion for just a moment, because you began your career as one of the leading voices, as you said, in the social protest in 2011, also known as the housing protest or the tent protest. And it led to launching your political career. And I even know that President Biden was asking you to stand up in a J Street convention and congratulating you for being a very, very young politician. But the question is, right now when you're activist, do you see the compromises maybe that when you go into politics, you have to do, and this is why things are not done, and this is why everybody here is like, hey, there are so many things, but there is no leadership, and as you go to politics, they just don't get to be done in the right way. Do you see a connection? Can you talk about you, maybe, about your experience moving different hats?
Yeah, for me, well, I acted quite differently in politics. Maybe it's also the reason that I'm not there now. But I was very independent as a politician. Part of choosing to be in a party that has primary elections, where you're not appointed by the head of the party, but you get elected by real people, was in my mind, after the protest movement, first of all, I wanted to get elected. I didn't want to like get a present for being part of the movement. I wanted to prove myself, to get elected by the people, not by any politician. And after that, it proved to be really important for my ability to not compromise my values. I recruited about 10,000 people to become members of the Labour Party. And they protected me. They helped me to be entirely independent in all of my fights, especially in the finance committee, and especially the things that I did against corruption that are very hard, because in some of these places, the center left also has different political interests. It wasn't always easy to do these fights with my own party. And these people who became members of the party and who actually elect the Knesset members, they protected me. And it was, and they didn't just protect me by electing me every time. They also really helped. They became volunteers. They helped in, investigating through the state budget and helping with legislation. They became active politically, and that was part of my goal. Because what I see, and I think that's the biggest problem with our political camp, and of course we can have a whole discussion about the problem with our political camp. It's very trendy, but we're in a war, so we'll save you from this discussion. But we're not political. We're dealing in our tendencies as people who are liberal, progressive, believe in democracy, believe that Tievet and Lichiot, I won't bother you, you don't bother me. And part of that is that we constantly are looking for a more consensus thinking. We're trying to get everyone to agree with us. That's how parties like Gantz rose up. Like they come from the center left. They kind of believe in the same things that they believe in democracy, they believe in two-state solution. They don't call it, they don't give it a political brand, but they want to achieve some kind of consensus with everyone. On the other side, something different is happening. The settlers movement are not trying to reach a consensus. They're trying to reach political power. And they are a minority in Israeli demography. There are 400,000 settlers in the West Bank. Half of them are ultra-Orthodox. They're not even related to the settler movement. The other half, most of it is not ideological. There is 80,000, 70,000 ideological settlers, a minority. They do politics. They operate politically. They have an ethos that you need to go to the military and do a military career, and you need to go to the Ministry of Justice, and you need to do a career as a public servant and in the treasury, and become a politician and become a journalist and serve the settler movement and do all of that. And they build a whole civil society organizations that get a lot of government funding. Even now, much of the coalition of the political money that is now going during the war is going to political NGOs of the settlers movement, when this money was supposed to take care of the people who were the victims of this war, and of military reservists and all the people who need help right now. What they do is to develop and fund and sponsor their NGOs, their political power. That's what these people do. And we don't do that. Our political camp knows how to protest very efficiently. We do wonderful protests. I'm very proud of what happened here during the past year. It's a beautiful, non-violent, democratic protest. It's not enough. To change reality, we also have to be political. And to be political is not just to find a place, a seat in parliament. It's to actually have ideas about what our reality should be, and to try to convince people with these ideas, rather than, looking at the poll and saying, okay, people believe in this and that, let's try to do that, and maybe we'll get into parliament. No, we have to start bringing a real story into Israeli life and convince people with this story. And there are so many people who already believe in that it's possible.
Is it a criticism on the protest movement that was, because you say on one side that you're proud of them, but on the other side, I hear you implying that they're not moving in the direction of gaining political power that they need.
No, I think it's more of a criticism on the protest movement that we did in 2011, where we did an enormous mobilizing. It was not enough. It was not political enough. Right. Eventually, I went into politics. Shmuley went into politics. That was not enough. The protest now, I think, is growing up. I think there is still, and there will be, like it's maturing. There is, at least in the beginning, there are still people who don't believe in this, in the political idea. But more and more people understand that, and we saw that in the elections to the, what do you call that? The lawyers organization? How do you say it in English? The Association of Lawyers?
The Bar Association.
It's okay. Yeah.
What?
The Bar Association.
So it's like, I don't even know the word for that. It's an organization that was completely uninteresting to anyone. Nobody knew what it was. But they have a seat on the committee that elects the judges and the Supreme Court judges. So all of a sudden, this was really interesting. And it was the first elections to this position that were actual elections, like tens of thousands of people came to vote. That never happened. And that was organized and led by the protest movement. They were now, we tried to create a whole big political story around the municipal elections that were supposed to be held 2 months ago, months and a half ago. They were postponed because of the war, but for the first time, the municipal elections became political achievements that the protest wanted. So that maturing process is happening. Really, I think now during the war, it's a question, because we are all used to, when there is a war, we unite around. We become silent.
Yes.
Exactly. But we're now in a very challenging situation where we cannot be silent, because the government is continuing with their anti-democratic legislation right now.
So do you think the protest movement should go back to protesting against the government and demanding a leadership that is worthy of the people right now in these days during the war?
I think it needs to be done in a different way, but it needs to be done.
And it needs to be done.
I think one of the biggest risks that we have today is internal. Is we have a government that is not trustworthy. We have a prime minister who has different interests than what the state has. We have people in this government. His minister of police opened, I don't know if you heard about it, he opened guns, he wants everyone to have personal guns right now. We're taking the worst from America sometimes. He wants everyone to hold a personal gun. And he gave his some of his very dangerous allies who don't have any experience, knowledge, or standards in deciding who needs to get a license to carry a personal gun. And is just like giving guns, thousands and thousands of guns to people. Some of them are very dangerous people. Some of them are part of the incitement campaigns against people on the left, against activists, against Arabs, of course. That's a very, very dangerous situation.
So it's dangerous also because we have a prime minister that is going to run this whole situation, in the people getting guns in the country and with the war in the border while being on trial. And I hear you say that there are many things that the protests can do, but differently. And I wonder if you can give us a few ideas. What's on your mind when you say that the protests can actually do and be effective and lead the change right now, but in a different way? Are there things that you can really point out to, really actions? Or maybe
I
they
think
need
one
to
of
go
the
to politics. I don't know, maybe the
I think one
leaders.
of the best, it's not just the leaders, it's really everyone. Every citizen needs to start to develop a political identity. It doesn't mean that everyone needs to run for parliament, but we all have to be more political. It means that in our day-to-day lives, not just during a protest, even though the protest kind of became our day-to-day lives, we need to start operate. It means that we need to find a way to put pressure on our own parties. There are different parties on the center left. We need to most of them are not democratic internally. They don't hold primary elections. It's a problem because in order to get more people in order to get the protest voice to be counted, we need them to be more democratic. And they listen to us. We need to put more pressure to make it happen. And if you really believe in democracy, you also have to act like a Democrat. And they always have excuses for why primary elections are bad, and then they say it's against cooperation, and there are many ways to solve that if you really want to create a better system. So that's one thing. The other thing is to put pressure on them to say the right political things. Many of the protest people probably voted for Gantz. He's getting like over 40 seats now in polls. He needs to start being more political. He's in politics and he's not a political person. And he's sitting in the government right now. And I wanted him to get into this government during the war. I thought that he needs to be there because we have a crazy cabinet. It's like we're under somebody put like it's a very difficult situation. It needs to be there, but be there, like do things. You see that Itamar Ben-Gvir is giving weapon to who's the Tzel, the shadow.
Yeah.
Is a guy who's like an expert in inciting and spreading racist claims online. He's now the chair of is leading like the private protection of Ben-Gvir in Tel Aviv. That's the kind of things that are being done. What happened last week on Thursday, I think, with an Israeli citizen that I can't stop thinking about that video of him.
Right.
An Israeli citizen who managed to stop terrorists with his own gun, and he's standing he's not standing, he's going on, he sees like that there are soldiers coming at him, not sure if he is a terrorist or not. He understands the situation. He takes his like wallet out and tells them to look at his wallet. He's like going down on his knees, showing like putting his shirt to show up, to show that he doesn't have any weapon, like his hands up, and he's shouting like, I'm Israeli, and he's getting shot and killed. These kind of things cannot just happen. That's not life, as Bibi said. That's life. That's not life.
Yeah.
And the fact that people, Gantz is now in the government, he needs to make huge noise and demand a change, because these situations on the ground, they come from the leadership. They come from the irresponsible statements of people, of politicians that we have in our government, who constantly tell us that it's the Supreme Court that blocks the soldiers from operating against terrorists and all of that nonsense. And what happened with Elor Azaria and all of these stories.
Yeah.
We have to stop that. And we have people in politics who need to fight for us. And there's the opposition. Those who know my work know that my obsession, just a sec, my obsession is the finance committee. I think that everything happens there. That's the place of the biggest corruption in government. Where is the opposition? Really, I see one, sometimes two members of parliament from the opposition who are operating in this committee. Why? there must be more people operating there all the time. And it's our responsibility to make them more political. And it's our responsibility to show them that if they want our trust, they need to start acting like people who really want it.
So I hear your call loud and clear that all of us in Israel, the citizens should become more political, the protests should become more political, engaging in more political power, and impacting the representatives. What can we do from here? What do you think that Israeli expats and American Jewish people who care and love about Israel and want to see a better future for Israel, what can we do here? How can we become more political in this respect?
First of all, I think that the American Jews have a much more political identity anyway. There are better political habits, generally speaking, in this community. And I think that there is a lot that can be learned here. You see, there is something I try to say it. I volunteer in all of these Hasbara organizations that were developed during the war to try to explain to the world what's happening here, which is crazy that we need to explain that. And part of what I see all the time is that there is, I mean, and Netanyahu works for that for many years. He made the international community, especially the American community, think of Israel as Netanyahu. It's like there is one identity of Israel, and it's Netanyahu. That's not good for us. It's not good for our PR, to put it simply. And what I try to do when I speak on American television or in different communities, I try to show them that actually, no, we have a majority of people who believe in a two-state solution, of people who fought during this year, I mean, week after week for democracy. And if the world wants to help promote peace, and if the world wants to help, the free Palestine, but believe in a two-state solution, and if they want to help promote democracy, because people in America are supposed to understand now that American democracy is also under a threat. So the way to do it is to help those who are fighting for it. And it's not Israel against Palestine now. It's now people who believe in democracy, freedom, and peace against the extremists. And this conflict is happening globally. And we need to start helping each other with this, because those on the other side, the populists, demagogues, anti-democratic leaders, they operate together globally. They collaborate all the time. They share resources, they share tactics, they share political advisors, they help each other. Sometimes
so
formally,
do you have concrete
sometimes
ideas
informally.
for us? Do you have some concrete ideas for us? We are a community of activists, and UnXeptable is actually an organization that, for the first time, got Israeli expats and American Jews to act together, to demonstrate together, to collaborate around democracy. But I wonder if you have more concrete ideas for us about how to make it into a political act rather than just stay with activism and with our voices and ideas without gaining political power.
So there are a few things. First of all, I think you need to be very aware to who you donate to, because a lot of it is, and a lot about the activism is also about giving donations to different organizations operating on the ground here. I think you need to be, and it's difficult to do. It's a big mission that I'm giving you now, but to be very aware who you divert this money to, and what kind of politics they do. That's crucial, because the civil society organizations here are trying to operate for a real cause. They need help. They need this money, but it needs to be the accurate ones. And there is a lot of noise around there, and a lot of money that is being used for the wrong causes. So it needs to be very. You need to do the research and see what.
And this is true for the global Jewish diaspora, not only American Jews, of course.
Yeah, that's true for everyone, and not just Jews. It's for everyone who helps with that on that front. The other thing is to build different political structures. I mean, you have. Well, I think that in the coming year, you need to do every effort that you can to help Biden get elected again. But really, every effort that you can. It's crucial, and there are not enough words to say that. But that's helping Israel, and really that's the first thing. Now is to strengthen those that you believe in, but really strengthen them. I think there is, when I say that there is a lot of, I think there is a stronger political tradition or political habits amongst American Jewry. It's also related to being a part of a community that helps organizing as a political and activist community as well. Use it. Help the Israelis that you believe that are going to do a political change. Share with them strategies and tactics and help them with doing the organizing. We don't have enough experience with organizing. Now with the protest movement, it really changed. Like now we finally have some like organizing infrastructure, but you can really help with that. And also, I think you're very much aware of that, but Netanyahu is always worried about his American image because he fantasizes about being an American politician, and what you're doing in the States and showing America that Israel is not Netanyahu, and showing them the true ideas behind the idea of Israel and the majority of Israeli people. That's a really, really important work, and it also helps. It helps Israel's image. It helps us reach the important collaborations that we need in the United States. And as you all know, the collaboration with the United States now is crucial for Israel's freedom to operate in Gaza, and that Hasbara activity and trying to get Biden and the support amongst the Democratic Party as well to his support in Israel is really, really important for Israel's security. And I guess you know all of that. That's the kind of things that I think are important to do right now.
So we're coming to the end of our hour together, unfortunately, because I'm enjoying it very much, and I'm sure our audience is too. And I want to wrap up our conversation thinking about the future. Where do we go from now? What is the vision for the future, so that we can all breathe in some optimism and some of the future. Before this, I know that there are many, many voices that were heard right after the attack of October 7. One of them is David Grossman, that said that now more and more of the Israeli population is actually going to be right-wing, gravitate toward the right. I even read articles from Israelis who were considering themselves center or even left-wing and were fantasizing on flat Gaza because of the shock and the wound and feeling insecure. Do you feel it in Israel? Do you think it's true? Do you feel like the population, the citizens, is actually gravitating toward being more right-wing?
Yes, of course. Violence, it's very sad to admit, violence works. Violence, a small group that commits violence acts can change a big group because it's scary, because it's creating trauma. It's, for me, I have a 9-month-old baby. She's almost the age of Kfir, who is still being held hostage, the redhead baby, from the Bibas family. There is not a minute in the day that I stop thinking about him. He's my baby's age. I just think about him being there. It's a thought that is not something that we can emotionally really comprehend. It's unbearable. And of course that is trauma, that is a collective trauma. Many people feel like Kfir is part of their family right now, and they never met him or his family, but for many of us, it's like it's our family. Mm-hmm. And that trauma creates a lack of belief that a change is possible. That's how terror groups always work. They operate with violence in order to make people not believe that anything would ever be different, and more people fall into becoming violent themselves and losing empathy. The biggest achievement of Hamas is that all of us, we lose our empathy, and we'll constantly be in fear. And I believe in something different, and I believe that Israel can be and has to be different because it is. We have an incredible society with so much power, with so much creativity, with an ability to achieve whatever we want to achieve. And it's about time we'll also have a leadership that represents that. Right. But it really depends on us making it happen and stopping to put that wall right between politics and activism. It's all the same thing. We all have to do everything that we can to make change in whatever field we decide right to, and help each other in achieving that.
I agree with you. And I do think that the only way to repair our souls and our mindset is to stop running away from what we fear and start working toward what we aspire to have and what kind of state do we want to have in Israel. So give me your vision. Where do we move toward right now? With, I know we're in the middle of this destruction and atrocities, and we still have people who are hostages and wounded soldiers who are being killed. I think today 7 soldiers were killed. Do you have a vision at this moment for the future?
Yes, I think we move from victimhood to initiative. We decide. That's the Zionist idea. We decide. We understand. I think that what people have to understand right now is that we can't survive here without a clear, defined border between us and the Palestinians in the West Bank and between us and the Palestinians in Gaza, at least for the near future. And that means that we need to reach some kind of agreement, and we need to get our global allies to collaborate with us on achieving that. Nobody is going to take the Gaza. Egypt will not take responsibility there. Jordan will not take it. People talk about it, but these are fantasies. We have to separate between fantasies and reality. I also would like that everything here would be peaceful. We won't have enemies on the border. That's not reality. In reality, we need a border. We need the United States and our allies within the Arab world to help us. We don't need to control it directly, but they have to maintain to keep the agreement. Of course, where there is no there's a complete dismantle of weapons and so on in Gaza, and without Hamas, but Hamas will not have any ability to continue to operate from there. We have to reach the international agreements to achieve that. The same thing goes for Iran. Iran is still, nobody talks about it right now, but the biggest problem is with Iran and with the failure of our government to maintain the agreement back from the Obama administration. And
so what is the vision for the future about Iran?
So the vision is a two-stage solution. The vision is that we use our energy to recruit the support of the world in fighting against the extremism and religious extremism of Iran and the anti-democratic association of Iran and Russia. On the other hand, we need to also start operating on different aspects of our society. Our society lost a lot of its solidarity. It lost a lot of its ability to be one cohesive society. We're much more divided than before. There is much more fear between Jews and Arabs on both sides, scared from each other. There is much more separation between the secular communities and the religious and ultra-Orthodox communities. True. These are core challenges. And the way to solve them is to create a new contract. First of all, that's based on democracy, that's based on giving more power to communities. I believe that the Israeli government is too centralized, even regardless of Netanyahu. It's way too centralized to be a strong democracy. We need to give much more power to local municipalities, much more ability for people to be part of the decision-making process with the participatory budgets on a municipal level, with much more ability to be involved in the way that our education system is being defined. Democracy became old. It's not just a problem of Netanyahu, it's also a problem of the essence of democracy. It didn't progress fast enough to cope with the changes of technology, with social media, with our ability to get with the spread of information. Democracy has to renew itself in order to survive, and it means we need to show people that they have a real voice. They don't have a real voice here. Voting once in 4 years or 2 years is not a real voice. A real voice is where you feel that you have, an entity, an agency in your life. And we have to create this feeling through communities, through municipal work, for a much more direct connection with our central politics.
Right.
And it's renewing the agreement. It's the narrowing down socioeconomic, all of these things that our solidarity is the foundation. When we talked in the beginning of the conversation about the hostages and the fact that I don't understand how it's not a common understanding that Israel's morality demands that we get all of them back. Our basic foundations of moral are about getting them all back. That's a change of the social contract.
Right.
And that's what I'm most worried about, because our ability to live here, our ability to love this place is based on this sense of solidarity. It's based on that, basic knowledge that our country is going to protect us. We're going to dedicate and sacrifice a lot of it in our lives, and sometimes our lives, to protect this country, and we're going to be protected by it. And then we're going to save each other. We're going to help each other. That's the foundation. Without it, there is no reason for our existence here. And that's what we have to bring back.
Any last word for this session to be complete? I want to thank you very much for the beautiful ideas, for sharing your views, your perspectives, your doings with our community. Any last word for this session to feel complete for you?
No, it was really important for me to join this conversation, because I think that you're a part of what we're doing here, and you're part of our fight for democracy. We need you in this fight. I think I know politicians very well. I know that what happened to them when they traveled abroad and they couldn't, do their shopping or enjoy their meetings because there were people protesting against them for democracy. It was really meaningful. So I'm thankful to you for that, for doing that. That's really, really important. And I think that you can help us here in the Israeli center, left, or democratic camp, call it whatever you want to call it. You can help our camp to become more political. You can also help our camp to speak up with the international community, to show what Israel really is. It's about time we stop doing the hasbara activities that are about, that's how I felt every time I was invited to universities in the States to talk with students about Israel and to try to help, Israel to improve its image. What I saw that the government was doing was that instead of, when people complained about the situation with the Palestinians or asked questions of what the Israeli government said, was something like, but we invented the USB and the cherry tomatoes. That's not really helping. We need to talk with people using their values, their system of values, and show them the complexity of what it means to live here, and make them join our fight. And I think that you can be really, really helpful in making it happen. It's really to help us navigate through that. It's to show the face of the true Israel that needs the international community to help our cause, that is dealing with the populism, with the populist leadership, exactly like many other countries in the world are dealing with. And the way to stop them is to start collaborating. Democrats around the world have to start working together. That is the solution to our problems. And we need to start speaking this message and become part of this community.
I think we couldn't agree more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you. And
wishing
keep
you a very
supporting. You're supporting many people here now. So please keep doing that.
We're wishing you a peaceful night and Besorot Tovot. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to all of us.
Thank you.